It's about to go down.
You are listening to WPRD 98.3 GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com and hosted by
You are listening to the incredible
Nova Phoenix and LK Mason.
This is 98.3 GCOM Radio. I'm your host, Nova Phoenix. We're going to get into this episode today for LK Mason. It's a special day. It is the day that her book, Zana the Brave, launches. So we're going to get into the phone zone with some guests involved with the making of the book and to talk about bullying. So, and one more thing before we get into the show, LK wanted to honor her late brother, Vincent D. Allen, a.k.a. Vinny D. He died 6/15/11, and today is his birthday. So much love to that brother. And yeah, we're going to get right into the show. And without further ado, let's get into the phone zone.
Hello.
You're in the phone zone with Nova Phoenix and LK Mason on GCOM Radio.
It's WPRD 98.3 GCOM Radio. What's going on, y'all? We are in the phone zone. I'm your host, Nova Phoenix, right along with the lovely lady, LK Mason. How you doing, lady?
I'm doing okay. How's everyone doing out there?
Okay. So we're doing this show. It's a special show on the release of LK's new book, Zana the Brave.
Yeah.
All right. And we're finally here with it, and it's a beautiful thing. I have a great butterfly feeling in my stomach because it's been talked about for a long time, and we are finally here. And it's a beautiful book. So we have a few guests that's on the show to talk about Zana the Brave, it coming together, and also the subject matter of bullying. So for this first segment, we have Qin Mobley. He's the illustrator of the book. And also we have Monique N. She's a filmmaker and digital content creator that was born out of her primary passion of writing. She was an associate professor of film studies at Santa Monica College, different departments in English, media studies, and film. She was an educator on all levels, from elementary school up to the undergraduate as an English professor at Cal State Los Angeles. And she is an author of 2 books. One of them is Sex Free, A Guide to Dating and Relationships, and an unreleased book from Tyrese Gibson that she's co-writing with him called Black Rose. She's also in entertainment. She has an entertainment journalism background, and she's written for several publications, the Ebony Vibe and The Source, and she's the managing editor of the hip-hop-based publication Rap Pages. And as you know, if you are a little older, everybody knows Rap Pages. Great magazine that was out, and they had a lot of dope artists that were on the cover, like Biggie Smalls, Eminem, Method Man, Mac 10, Snoop, and Dr. Dre.
The infamous Biggie cover came, that Biggie as King came from Rap Pages.
Yes, and I still have that T-shirt.
Shout out to Dream Hampton. Yeah, crown. She was like, let's put the crown on, and that's like, that came from Rap Pages. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah. That was a beautiful magazine. That was beautiful. I got it all the time. So yeah, man, we are here. We're going to talk about Zana the Brave. And LK, please, if people have not heard about the book from previous shows, here we are talking about Zana the Brave. And LK, please tell us about how this all came together.
Yeah, I'm so excited. First of all, that the release date is almost here. Well, it's actually here, and I was celebrating with a few friends yesterday in regards to the book being published on Amazon, and we've gotten quite a few good reviews. And yeah, so it's finally here. I'm so excited. So if I ramble on, please stop me, because I could talk forever and ever. I could go on a tangent. I really could. But, basically I was working on a project actually with Qin, and we were doing, I think, a logo for another project that I was working on. And while I was working with him, we just really meshed well. Like, our communication, whatever I would tell him I wanted, he was able to bring it to life, through his illustration, his drawings. And so, while we were doing that, I was like, wow, I was looking at the news and everything, and I was just really feeling disheartened about the situations that were going on, about young people committing suicide. There were school shootings, there were people, and, it was leading back to people being bullied or being ostracized, and it just really was disheartening and saddening for me. And I knew that this was something that I had endured when I was a child. And so I was just thinking about that, and I was, trying to think about how I could reach these children and let them know that, there is a way out. You know what I mean? There is, they do have a way out, and they don't have to commit suicide, and they don't have to build up so much anger and rage. Others have gone through it. They are not alone. And so as I was thinking about that, I said, I have been contemplating writing books anyway. I said, why don't I write a book? And I said, well, kids don't really like to read all like that. Unfortunately, they don't, I said, why don't I do like a kind of a picture storybook? We can draw them in with illustrations, and I can bring in Qin because he's able to bring what I say to life, with his work. He's a beautiful artist. And so I just kind of threw the idea out to him. I said, Qin, I'm thinking about writing a book, and I would love if you would be my illustrator. And he said, absolutely. And I don't even think it was a year later, maybe 6 months later, I said, okay, let's get busy.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like 6 months later.
Okay.
It was like 6 months later, and we just got started.
And how did that first meeting get together with LK?
It was easy, actually. It was pretty easy. She had like everything laid out for me. The first thing was to get the main character going, and basically we made the main character based off her younger pictures, but with a little tweak with my style. So a lot of people a lot of people think like, okay, it's her, but it's not really her. You know what I'm saying? It's like maybe like a future version of her children. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's an idea of, maybe just a guidebook to her future daughter, her future son, almost. That's how I envisioned it when I drew the character.
Right.
Okay. And LK, given the direction of the character, how much was your ideas that added to the style of this world that was being created?
Oh, I was very hands-on.
I'm sorry, that was
She was.
But for Qin, how did that how did that come together? That was mostly, of course, you said it was LK's giving you direction, but your spin was on that. How did that come together?
Basically, like, it's her vision, but like color palettes, the way I designed the hair. And then she wanted the hair a certain way, but I'll put like my own little tweak in it. Like I might add like a little swirl, a little different. And she messed with it good. She understood where I was coming from, and it worked out well. Okay,
fantastic. And okay, how does Zana? What is this close relationship with Zana? What does she mean to you?
Well, I always wanted to have a little girl. I don't have any children yet. And I knew that, if I had a daughter, I wanted her to exhibit strength. I wanted her to be independent. I wanted her to be smart. I wanted her to be a little mini me. And I had always kept that name in my back pocket. I don't know about, Monique or anyone else. When growing up, I was, we would talk with my friends, and everybody always wanted to be a mom, and we would talk about, if I have a little girl, I'm going to name her this, and if I have a son, I'm going to name him that. And I was like, I'm not telling anybody else any more of my names, because every time I would give my name out, someone would name their child what I had suggested. And so
that so happened to me. Yes, I was so upset.
Yes. And so I had finally, I believe it was a show that Sinbad had. And he had a little girl. I can't remember if it was like adoptive child or something on the show. I can't really remember the show, but I remember that name, Zana. And I kind of kept that in my back pocket and said, that's what I'm going to name my daughter one day. And so that's kind of how the title came about. You know, it was kind of like my gift to my future daughter. And also the book being my child. You know, I haven't birthed any children. This is me birthing a child. And so that's how Zana came about. And then I said, okay, I want this child to be brave. I want her to be strong. She's overcoming something that so many people are dealing with right now. And so that's how the brave part of it came in, Zana the Brave.
Now, it's the question for LK and Quinn at the same time. As far as the world building, me getting a hold of the book, it's a very robust book as far as all the characters involved, not just Zana the Brave. Now, how did these other supporting characters come into play in relationship to Zana?
You want me to go first?
Yeah. Okay, start first, and then Quinn, you can follow up.
Okay.
It was basically all, you know, my vision. I heavily borrowed from my own life, my own experiences. Like I said, when I was in elementary school, I had some incidences where I was bullied. You know, I was teased a lot. And I kind of borrowed from some of those stories. And not only those stories, I borrowed from some things that people that I knew or people who had children as I, you know, grew up and became an adult. People were giving me, telling me things about their children going through things. And so I took those stories and created characters who embodied the people in those stories.
And Quinn?
Yeah, to just touch on what she said, like she just embodied that, and she just basically led me to draw the characters. Basically, in the whole book, you don't just see Zana by herself, you know, getting bullied. You see her friends getting bullied as a whole. So they basically, you know, they're a group of people that getting bullied. So that's it's not just her. It's just basically how I looked at it. It's like the world. You know, every child nowadays getting bullied about little simple stuff. So it's just like it's getting like a aspect of like this Asian boy's getting bullied. You know, this little black girl's getting bullied. This little white boy's getting bullied. It's not just one color. It's not just one race. It's like they know, hey, this is a common thing that's happening around the world.
Okay, Monique.
Yes, sir.
Because of your background in editing, how did you guys first meet with LK as far as getting the editing done for this book?
I met LK through Tyrese, actually. She did the transcribing for a lot of the speeches or Facebook posts that Tyrese made available, and that we shaped and used to shape into the book Black Rose. So we developed a working relationship a couple of years prior, and then she contacted me to tell me about Zana, and I was like, wow, that's dope. Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so what do you think? What are some of the things that you look for when editing books and other material in general?
For me, it's the story. It's the passion. Like I believe in, of course, having a message, but I think that people should be entertained. And I'm one of those people. I want the airplane to just look like it's shiny and it's flying as big as possible before I use that to drop the medicine. So what I liked about Zana is just I love the background. I loved her supportive family. She has brothers. She has, you know, just a tribe of friends, and they kind of come together for bullying. And it's one of those things that I don't really understand in terms of what's happening in our society, where right now the number one death among young children, black children in particular, is suicide. And so much of that suicide is a result of bullying. It just breaks my heart. And when LK approached me, I was just so excited to see a proactive way to deal with that. And I'm always motivated by love, as love is the fuel. And I really liked how Zana and her friends came together for proactive ways to deal with a situation that seemed larger than themselves.
Right. Have you ever seen or heard of books on bullying for kids in your history?
Have ever seen a book on bullying?
Yeah, just a children's book.
Actually, I've done some research on it, but one of the best books on childhood bullying for girls is Queen Bees and Wannabes, that actually Tina Fey made into Mean Girls. Like, that was a great nonfiction book, and she read the book and turned it into Mean Girls, and that's Girls Fight a Little Differently. So I thought that was really an interesting book on that. So, and just in addition to being a professor, like I was in graduate school for sociology, so I've always been very interested in the way that art is shaped by society and society beliefs. So I've had definite background with understanding bullying. I haven't read a children's book on bullying, so I was very happy to be a part of that as well. Have you seen LK's merchandising for Zana? Like, it's just off the charts, like little book bags and the shirts. Like, it's definitely a pride builder. I love the whole package. I love the whole, everything happening. I'm just like, yes, Zana is all that. LK is doing it. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. But as it came to the story, what would be important lessons that parents can share with their children about that? For you, Monique.
Some lessons definitely are one. As a child, I was raised in the projects of Harlem, and while in Los Angeles being skinny is like a great thing, it's not necessarily that when you're, I didn't have that robust jamming body like I needed to have growing up to be accepted. So I got teased an awful lot. And one of the things that Zana does that I think is great is, one is she talks to her family about it. The second is that she realizes that what's happened to her is not just her alone, and she links with other people who have been affected by this. And again, they have proactive measures. They don't descend into hatred. They don't descend into bitterness, but they know things need to stop. And the third thing is they had proof for authorities, for their teachers, because sometimes, adults don't listen to children, and they really figured out a plan that was foolproof. And I really like that they have ownership over their identity and their bodies and their future. And those are like major lessons for children. Like, that lesson of empowerment and friendship is everything.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yes.
So, what is the impression do you want to leave people with Zana the Brave for you?
I want them to understand what goes on behind the scenes when adults aren't watching. Society sets these standards and they expect our kids to live up to them, but we forget that they're children. The adult brain doesn't fully develop, I think they said, until we're 25. And we set these standards, and you say, okay, you have to tell someone, and you can't fight back, and, you tell them, you just tell them to stop. And that does not work all the time. Sometimes kids will follow all of the rules, and then they're continuing to be bullied. And so that leads to that depression in childhood. That leads to these babies committing suicide. That leads to these school shootings. And so with Zana the Brave in the series, I'm hoping to give not only kids, but adults inside view of what goes on with a child who's constantly being bullied.
Yeah, that was a great first segment with LK's illustrator and editor of the book. But one person that we didn't shout out, her name is the web designer, of course. He can't leave her out. Her name is Erica Ziegler Roberts. She did a fantastic job with WPRD.com. So go check it out, folks, as you listen to the show. So we're going to continue into our first artist of the show. Her name is Cherri V. I love her to death. She has a special place in my heart. Yes. She's an R&B artist from across the pond in the UK, and her song is called Things You Do. So listen and enjoy her sounds.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Cherri stick. Ooh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Don't give me no chaser. Only one I want on my taste buds. And no, no, I know it don't take much. And no, no, I know I don't pay for, baby. And now you're my favorite chemical reaction maker. And no, no, I know it don't take much. And no, no, I know I don't pay for it. I'm lying, drunk on your loving. Nobody said that I'd be sipping, tripping, and falling. Baby, come closer. I don't want to be sober. Each time you touch my lips, I feel like tripping over. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe.
Listen up.
You're listening to Qin Radio.
Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do. Chocolate martini. Give me that see me. And no, no, I know I can't take much. And no, no, I know I don't break much, honey. Refill but go easy. Spin off my head top queasy. And no, no, I know I can't take much. So go slow, I know, and now I'm lying. Drunk on your loving. Nobody said that I'd be sipping, tripping, and falling. Baby, come closer. I don't want to be sober. Each time you touch my lips, I feel like tripping over. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do. Rolling around, wonder when how will fade. Monday morning when I wake up, say, ew, hanging on the aftertaste. I hope you don't leave. My body's dependent on you. I'm slowly addicted to the way you make me crazy. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do, babe. Love the things you do. Just the things you do make me say you, boo boo. Just the things you do make me say you, boo boo. Just the things you do. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes, we have returned. We're in the phone zone, continuing on with the special episode with L.K. Mason's Zana the Brave book. And we have two additional guests that are on the show. We have Cynthia Pincham-Little. She's a school-based social worker for Youngstown City School District. She's been in the Trumball County Children's Services for 24 years as senior supervisor and of foster care and adoption. She's also worked as a private agency at Bear Foundation, foster care adoption. And she's also been in church for 30 years as a youth choir director. We also have Paulette Edingon. She's the executive director of Trumball Family Fitness. It was formerly YMCA. And now she takes care of a variety of different tasks in that downtown Warren area. How are you doing, ladies?
Doing well. We are doing good. And how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you both for coming on to the show. And in the previous segment, we spoke about Zana the Brave book, but right now we're dealing with the subject matter of bullying, with what Zana the Brave does deal with in the book. And I just wanted to ask you, Miss Cynthia Pincham-Little, the first question would be, with the Zana the Brave coming into play and talking about bullying, what do you think are the signs from kids that they're being bullied?
Okay, well, actually working in the school over the last 3 years, this subject comes up on a daily basis. And I think the reason being is because so many students are hearing more and more in the media about other youth their age experiencing
bullying in the schools, even within the home setting with older siblings. And we get called as social workers to intervene at different levels. And so most recently, even at school, I had a parent come in very upset because her child was saying that there was another student in the classroom that was bullying the whole class. Now, mind you, some of the students, when they say bullying, it could be just somebody that hit them on the playground or something like that. And so we have to determine, really, is this a bullying incident or not? But it is a situation in the district that we are trying to meet right there up front, involve the parents in the beginning to try to do mediation, including the parents, because a lot of times they don't even know what's going on. And we have been successful in resolving most cases. It's scary to me when I see on the news about 10-year-olds committing suicide because they're being bullied and nobody knew about it or did anything, or maybe not enough. And I'm always thinking, am I doing enough? When I go home at 3:45, 4 o'clock, am I doing enough? Did I make sure I notified the parents or whoever the caregiver is? Because we have a lot of children in foster care in the school district too. Did I make all the notifications so that they can watch over that child, especially over the weekend, times where we wouldn't be having contact with them. And so Zana has brought a whole lot of, I was telling LK, I said, listen, this book is right on time, and I just can't wait. I want to get it all into the school district if possible. And if nothing else, it would be a tool to start sharing, to have conversations.
Are there any signs that kids that are being bullied that they exhibit that make you look a little bit further?
Well, students that are withdrawn, usually in the cafeteria or during recess time, they may be sitting by themselves. Or it could be even a teacher who is noticing that there are students that are laughing at them, or even the student has come up to them and shared a little bit, because a lot of times in these situations they don't share everything that's going on. It might be bits and pieces. And so that starts the conversation. Yes.
Right. Cynthia, you had said something that I kind of wanted to ask a question. How do you determine when a student has come to you and said that they're being bullied, how do you determine whether or not an incident is bullying, or if it's just, two kids that just got into it at that moment?
Well, the first thing that I do, I get the student to describe for me what brought them to me, whatever that day was or that moment. Was it a teacher that referred them to come see me? Did they come on their own? And describe for me what is going on. And then I try to determine how many incidents this occurred. So there's a way that I question the students to see if they can tell me that. Also, I may or may not involve older siblings. We have a lot of sibling groups. I try to identify who their friends are, who that they can talk to, see if the teachers have noticed anything in their journals that they write. And a lot of times that is very telling, too, because they're written assignments, if they're on the lines of depressed talk about things, about not wanting to be here or feeling lonely. And so we just try to determine, if there's something going on, and also through observations,
Can I add to that, to Elke's question? And from my experience, what I have found is that oftentimes the more we try to bring knowledge about a specific topic in bullying in general, we do have, in my experience, found where you'll have parents that will call and say, I need to talk to you because my child is being bullied. And oftentimes it's a cultural difference. In some cases, one thing I dealt with this past summer was a mother called in and said that the kids were bullying her son. Well, this young man is very short in stature. So he's in the 3rd grade, but about the same size as the kindergartners in our program. So when we were introducing all the new kids and different relationships, he would tell the kids, oh, I'm in the 3rd grade. And they would say to him, well, you look like you're in kindergarten. They weren't trying to be malicious, or they weren't having an attitude against him. They were just saying, you know, you look like you're in kindergarten. Well, because this young man was super sensitive and very protected by his family, Mom said she felt like he was being bullied and how the kids could not relate to that. But I had to have a conversation with her also that as he begins to interact with other kids outside of his normal social setting, the people right there in his neighborhood and people that see him on a regular basis, he will face challenges like that. But because sometimes the word bullying is thrown out there so much, I think as adults, and especially when I was working in the Warren City school settings and even now in a community setting, I think we don't always take it as seriously as we should. Mm-hmm. And there are serious cases of bullying that fall through the cracks and we miss them. But what I've tried to do is watch for young people who are withdrawn, see a change in friends, see a change in their physical, whether they may pick up some weight or may lose some weight, and then just trying to gauge a child's mindset for the day. And I try to do that by greeting them, trying to see if they make eye contact, and just pay attention to their changes. But I think it's difficult. And as adults, I think the book, Zana the Brave, I read it from an adult perspective to give us more awareness and more clues to pay attention to make sure that we are not missing young people that are truly being bullied, because it's so prevalent today. I mean, we see it every time we turn on the news, every time we see a TV show, but we need to become more aware.
Ms. Edingon, then how do we deal with bullying with kids then?
There's different ways that we deal with it. For the child that is bullying, what I have found is, one, to have a conversation with that child and also with that child's grown-up, whether it be their parent, their grandparent, another guardian, or if they're involved with a social agency. Awareness is important, and making sure that we educate these young people about what bullying is and the difference of it, because some kids will say, well, I'm not bullying. My parents tell me to fight. You know, they tell me to do this, they tell me to do that, and they're thinking about themselves and not really thinking of others around them. It's just their personal satisfaction for that moment. So if you're in my way, or if you're smaller than me, or if you're not doing as well as me, or you're doing things, and I'm just personally thinking about myself. So the more we make young people more socially aware of not just themselves, but also others, teaching them more about empathy and sympathizing with one another. But I also think we can't take it lightly with those that are being bullied, and we need to get down to the root of what the issue is that's causing that. Some of these kids are being bullied by their parents, and parents don't even realize that oftentimes we're the biggest bully.
I was about to ask you that. What if their parents would say, well, my child doesn't bully anybody, and you can't you can't let the parent know that, yeah, your child is, bullying other children. I mean, what do you come into resistance there?
Well, what we've done in our after school and our summer program is we keep a log of different instances of any time something's happening, watching what a child says, especially when somebody has told us, this person's being mean, or this person's being a bully, or this person's not being nice. I try to look at those keywords also. Being mean, he has an attitude, I'm not being nice, he hit me, he kicked me, he pushed me, threw the ball at me really hard. So we try to keep a pattern of that, and that way when we have conversations with grown-ups that don't often see it, we can say, well, Monday this happened at this particular time, and this is a conversation we had and who was involved. It takes a lot of work and effort to do that, but when we see these cases, and I really want the parent to know, I'm not picking on your child, or even in a school setting, the teacher's not picking on your child, but to have that documentation and for the parents to be able to see it and the child be able to acknowledge, well, these particular things happen, I think it makes it a little easier to have the parent understand exactly what's going on with their child and the harm that they're causing to another child.
Okay. Ms. Pincham, how many cases have you seen where the bully becomes the bully?
The bully becomes the bully. I don't know if I have an actual count of how many cases. I could think of some recent situations in which we had a family, a sibling group of bullies, which started off from them experiencing being in a home with domestic violence when we got to the bottom of everything. When you have the mother and the father continually fighting and police involvement, and these kids experiencing trauma, and they're saying the only way to handle situations is through violence, and then that's what they do. They bring it to school. So we have what's called a complaint. It's like a complaint form that if a parent feels their child is being bullied, they can come to the school and complete the form. We take it to the highest level. It's serious. We make sure that the child knows that they're supported and that we are going to make sure there's a safety plan in place while we're investigating the allegation of the bullying. And I really appreciate that step, because sometimes you have a student that will just try to get another student in trouble, or there's something going on that really isn't bullying. So we act like this is a serious matter, and we're going to handle it a serious way. We're going to involve the adult. Everyone's going to be involved in the safety plan. And usually you'll have a student that will admit to something, or, it's resolved within a week or so. And then in the worst cases, sometimes the student has to be either moved to another classroom, or sometimes the parent even removes them from the school out of fear, that this is going to continue.
So how do we help kids that are dealing with bullying, the ones that are deeply affected by this and going through turmoil? Is there any methods, sitting down with them and, coaching them through? How do we deal with that to make sure that it doesn't, they don't become a bully, or they don't, lead to harming themselves? How do we deal with kids that are seriously affected by that?
I think once we've had a conversation and identified what the issue is, to begin to be a support for that young person. As I said, there was a young lady that I worked with in middle school, and the day I met her, I was told to watch her because she had tried to harm herself in school. And I had already known that this young woman had been bullied throughout the school year, but she wasn't assigned to me as a school liaison. But whenever I would see her, I'd try to interact with her, talk to her, but never had built a strong relationship. But the day that she was brought into my office and told, have a seat, you sit right here and don't you move, and I was told to watch her. And as I began to talk to her, about different things, she was picked on about her hair, she was picked on about her clothing, she was picked on because she dressed like a boy all the time. But her family didn't have much. But as I sat there and began to talk to her, and then I said, well, let's walk, and tried to build a relationship with her, and I found out that she was a poet. She liked to write. So she had some of her poetry in her pocket. And as I began to read her poetry, it was very dark and began to speak to all of the pains and everything that she went through. And she said, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, you're going to think I'm bad after you read all these. But I didn't do that. And because I wasn't judging her because of her hurt and her experiences, she began to open up and we began to talk. And the more I began to find out what the situation was and why kids were saying things and doing things. And I went to some of the witnesses that have seen some of the bullying and tried to find out, what did kids say to her? And then we began to make sure that she had some of the proper needs. Now, her family was a very difficult thing to process because they were very private. What happens in the house stays in the house. We don't want handouts. We don't want help. But then we worked and we got involved, began to get her some clothes, gave her an opportunity to take showers at school, got her some shoes, and began to do things like that. Took her to get her hair done. And then things began to change. And as I said, I still have several of her pieces of poetry. And at least every 2 or 3 months now, she'll come and see me. And we communicate on social media all the time. She has my phone number, and we communicate. But some of the other, I have another young lady that we dealt with, and she goes to a predominantly white school district, African-American child, matted up hair because she always wore her hair in a ponytail. Did not know how to comb through it. Her parents didn't help her comb through it. And she was bullied at school about that. The girls picked on her hair. But they did it in a subtle way, saying, oh, we have flowing ponytails. She didn't. But she became a bully in our summer program and tried to drown one of the little girls in the pool because the little girl said something about her hair. So we went and got her hair done and got permission from Mom, and Mom wanted her to have a perm. So we took her to a hair salon, and it took 4 hours. But the little girl, when she saw her hair, was in tears. Her hair was down the middle of her back. And from that, we created a program called Mirror Mirror, which helped these kids. Her statement to the beautician was, I can't wait to go to school on Monday because nobody's going to pick with me anymore.
Wow.
Just because she got her hair done. And those are simple things, you know, that we think all families can take care of that. Everybody can go get their hair done. Everybody has shampoo. Everybody has a brush. Everybody has deodorant. But doing some of those things can help support a child in those instances of being bullied.
Yeah, this is some great information to listen to. I never knew that bullying can kind of like cut so deep to young folks. And actually doing the research and connecting the dots from schools being shot up to young kids killing themselves, peeling back the layers makes me realize how deep that this can go. And it's quite unfortunate. So we're going to get into our second artist before we continue on with the segment. The second artist that we have is Lil Shady. We played him before on the show. Great artist. Love this dude. Coming straight out of Ohio. And we played this song before, but you know what? I like this song so much, I think it should be played again. And the song is called Momma. I think it's hot. So listen up, y'all.
Yes. Yes. Mama. Mama. Lorraine. Sweet Lorraine. Yeah. Ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place. What I won't do for your love. You gave me everything, so I won't give up. You carried me for 9 months, then I came. Named me after Pop's first, middle, and last name. Short little something with the heart of 20 men. So don't push it to the edge, they gon' need 20 men. Born in Arkansas, came to the dub. Best cooking hands down, raised me to show love. Even when the love ain't being showed back, taught me how to earn my keep, so when I sleep I know I earned that. It's okay to cry, be a man and stand tall. Life lessons you taught me, mama, I stand tall. Through adversity, jail visits, and hard times. You always kept it 100 and rolled by my side. Praise me when I'm right, scold me when I'm wrong. 14 and had a baby on the way and I was wrong. Daddy flipping out, but you remain cool. Told me it's gonna be okay, we'll make it do what it do. I love you, mama. Sweet Lorraine, yeah.
Ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place.
What I won't do for your love. You gave me everything, so I won't give up. Yes. June 2011, we lost Penny Love. Y'all ain't been together since 89 and you showed up. Bedside, wake, funeral and all, yes. Taught me life is a gift, unfortunately death is a part of the plan, we all gon' leave soon. I don't ever want you to leave, mama, I need you. You been a mother to so many and they all love ya. I put no one above ya, there'll never be another. I put my life on the line on the daily. I know I keep you worried about my safety, mama, pray for me. But best believe I stay strapped and on alert. When I don't hear from you, it hurt. When I don't hear from you, it hurt, mama. Some never see my struggle, they only see the trouble. You held me down when I was down, for that I always love you. Wish I can kill your misery and replace it with happiness. Just need your faith in me. I love you, mama. Sweet Lorraine, yeah.
Ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place.
What I won't do for your love. You gave me everything, so I won't give up. Sweet Lorraine, yeah.
Ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place.
I love them.
WPRD 98.3 GCOM Radio.
It's funny that you're like literally answering my questions before I answer them.
I'm sorry.
Before I ask them. No, that's fine, because a lot of these things are interlinked. From parents, from the children's behavior, from peer pressure. Like, all of these different areas play a factor, from a kid that turns into a bully to the ones that's receiving the bullying. And my thing was, how do we, one of the questions that I did want to give you that you answered was, as far as you brought this girl to the, get a hairstyle, to help her out. What other positive reinforcement can we give kids to help them through this bullying period, or the ones being bullied? Are there any specific methods that could be used to kind of like reduce the amount of bullying, minimize it, and teaching kids that this is not a good thing to do?
Leadership teams in the school have worked. We have pre-K through 8th grade students in the schools, and so we've developed with the middle school student leadership teams and have wrapped around the students who are struggling, those who may or may not be bullied, because I believe we really have not identified all the students that have been bullied or are being bullied in the school. Also, we have an art program, because a lot of times they want to express themselves through art and through reading, which we emphasize in the school daily. And they make different connections when they're in different circles. When the students are left by themselves to make friends, sometimes they either make poor choices in friends, or they're being friends for the wrong reason. Just like that example was given about the young lady in her hair, I see a lot of examples of children with their clothing not being appropriate to what the other students would wear. They don't have designer clothing, or their shoes. We had one boy there was picked on because of his shoes were flapping from the bottom because the sole had come off. Or even the students who try to take food home in their backpack. Kids are teasing them about them not having food, although in the Youngstown District, all the kids get their meals free, breakfast, lunch, and the after-school program. They get dinner all of that's free. And that's why you're hearing a lot about these food pantries and everything, that we are trying to support these children that are going home. So they can, they're worrying about things like that. So I see more services being offered through the community counseling agencies. We have within the school where they are actually doing intervention. The children either can go there and eat lunch with the counselor. We have groups, even for the little kids. We had kindergartners in groups. And we keep this conversation going because we want the kids to be comfortable to come forward to say if anything is going wrong. And so that's what I see that's going on that's positive, and it's going to continue.
Right. Ms. Pincham, how are there any as far as additional positive reinforcement, like group activities, teamwork activities that could be done so that the students or the kids could get to know each other, so it kind of reduces bullying? Is that possible?
I think there's some different inclusion activities and games to get kids to know one another, to be able to see more of their commonalities than their differences. Right. And then I'm a strong component of teaching kids, too, about being positive. One, I think prayer is always very important, but I also believe not to force my religious beliefs on any child, but to also let them know that they're created for a purpose. And even though they're going through these particular things at this particular time, that with my support and also the support and the strength from their creator, that we can move forward in what they're going through together. And I think more education programs. I see, I was watching on the news this morning that the NFL, I didn't see the whole thing, is doing a little bit more so that kids are more aware of bullying. One thing I also saw YSU was doing, where they, I can't even think of what it's called right now, but advocating where I am a ally, to know that this is a safe zone, this is a bully-free zone, and to let kids know, or even grown-ups know, that when they see these symbols or when they see these signs, to know that I'm in a safe area, that there's somebody here that understands what I'm going through, and I can feel comfortable enough to go to them to be able to get the help and the support I need to know that I'm not being judged, whether that's in a school setting or a community setting. What I've tried to do in the community setting is let staff know to listen for cues, but we also have to be very careful what we say so a child doesn't shut down. When we're trying to make them feel safe and secure, because the safer they feel and the more secure they feel, it was awesome in reading the book with the empowerment that I saw when Zana sat and had a conversation with her brother. And because he was willing to listen and open up and pay attention to her, that strengthened her to be able to move forward. But he also let her know, but I'm there for you and I got your back. And the more we can do that as grown-ups, and we empower other students who see it, not to laugh about it, not to sit back and be silent spectators, that they also have a role and they have a voice to advocate for the victim, but also to fight and to stand against those that are being bullied. So I think the more we're able to do that and support all three populations, the bully, the bullied, and those that are witnessing this, we'll be able to see some changes. Okay.
Ms. Pincham, you have 24 years at Trumball County Children's Services. Do you think, or over your span of working with kids, do you think bullying has a deeper psychological effect into one's adulthood?
I think we're talking about it more now. I mean, bullying has gone on for many years. I mean, you mentioned 24 years. When I first started at Children's Services, we were dealing with cocaine, crack cocaine, and we've progressively moved on to what's going on in the homes where these kids are experiencing trauma. And I think that bullying is one of the top concerns. But I tell you what, with the drugs, opioid crisis that's going on right now, that's where all the focus is. So we have to continue to keep bringing it up and maybe see that there's other signs and indicators that we could be missing because we're attributing it to something else that's going on in the home. I've always said, as a child service worker, someone that's going into the home, the parents are only going to present so much, and a lot of times your investigation involves just observations in the home, observations in the school, and conversations with the student, but they have to be comfortable with you.
Right.
Do that.
So we're well aware of the shootings that happen in these schools. One of them is Columbine, and there's several more that pop up every other year. These kids were victims of bullying, if I'm correct. This is not something that we can just look at and say it's just kids being kids. We can just stop them and separate them. This could lead on into more lethal outcomes, correct?
Yes.
And anyone can answer, Miss Eddington or Miss Pincham. I want to make the connection here that this is not something that kids are going to go through bullying. It's something that they just go through. It's a part of childhood, but it can actually lead into more unfortunate outcomes when we hear about Columbine.
Right. I think, our former President Obama said it best. I posted a quote of his not too long ago about bullying, and he said that bullying is not a rite of passage. It is not right, and it has to be stopped.
Right. Any some words from either of you that can kind of make that connection? Based on your years, both of you two sisters, based on both of your many years working in your fields, can that connection be made?
Well, I believe it can. Go ahead.
I can just say, because I've only been in the school district 3 years, and of course those shootings, how many years have we gone now? 20 years of school shootings, and I think I heard on the news we're hundreds, across the nation. Some you may hear about, some you don't. If there's a tragedy, you're definitely going to hear about it. We're required to do those safety drills, and every time I hear over the speaker that we are doing this, my nerves just go like, what if this really happened? There could be a student here that we missed, and they've already said, okay, here's this person that killed these people, and he was quiet, or maybe he said something that was kind of odd, but he was to himself. So then we're up here trying to look for students like that, and I don't know if really the makeup of the students are all the same. And so I think we're hyper vigilant over it because it can happen. We've seen it happen. It's just like, when is it going to happen? That's kind of my thought in all of that. And can we intervene? Because younger and younger students are committing suicide. 9, 10, 11 years old. Used to be we look at our teenagers and see what they're saying and doing, but these are children that could be missed. And so I think that's what we're doing now. We're more focused on who are these students that are sitting in the room that's quiet, or maybe they wrote something on a piece of paper that was odd. Anytime a student talks about, I got a gun, or my uncle got a gun, they're getting sent to the office. You can't say the word gun. It's beyond the whole, we're just picking on somebody on the playground. Does this student fit the profile of someone that we should be monitoring closely? Is this student appropriate to be in a public school setting? Should they be somewhere else more restrictive? How involved are the parents? Do they care about our calls about their child being aggressive? Aggressive on the playground, aggressive in the lunchroom. Are they coming up to the school, sitting in the classroom? So we're trying to do all these things to keep everybody that is involved in that student's life in tune to what is going on. There's no secrets. We need to be talking about this student. And that's what I see that's different as the years go by and more incidents are happening.
Mm-hmm. Also, to add to that, we're also seeing violence becoming commonplace. The video games that our young people are playing, even on our TV shows, what we're seeing in primetime TV. Cartoons have always been violent, but I think it's more prominent now to see the violence. Even looking at some of our movies, if you look at the movie Happy Feet, almost that whole movie is about bullying, where they're ostracizing this little young penguin because he couldn't sing. He didn't have a song, and he had to prove himself and do something for the community to be accepted. Why did he have to do something for the community to be accepted? They could not. I have a big problem with some of the movies that our children watch, but why couldn't he just be accepted for who he is? Right. Not because he had to go out and do something to help or save the community. And I think we need to express more and more in our adult society, and as we grow, that we just have common courtesies. My pastor is teaching right now about we're trying to be so godly that we forget to be human. Right. And being human, and we're seeing it all over our nation, we're seeing it all over the world, that people want the same things that we want. We want love, we want peace, we want comfort, we want security, we want joy. And if we can stop and think about what we want, and then try to have the compassion to offer those same things that we want and desire to somebody else. But it's easier now just to be desocialized, I guess you could say, and it's not real, and find other ways for our young people to express things and to say things. You die in a video game, but then you get a new life.
Right.
But that's not reality. And where's that breakdown to begin to show our young people that all of this is not reality? Even on a deeper level, my husband is a retired police officer, but our children never saw his guns. They never saw them in the house. But even the access that these children have to weapons, and in some of these school shootings, these weapons were purchased for the child. Right. Whether it was to go hunting or, for whatever reason, but the access to tools of violence they're easily accessible for our young people, and it's we have a lot of work to do.
Right. One of my favorite quotes that I use all the time is, you don't get to choose how people react to or feel about what you say or do, right? So you may feel like, I'm not being mean, I'm just telling the truth, but you don't get to choose how I react to it or how it makes me feel. You don't know, what someone's trigger is. So in your example earlier, Ms. Paulette, when you were talking about the little boy who was shorter, and so they thought he was, a kindergartner or whatever, the kids weren't meaning to be malicious, but once they saw how it made him feel, that's when we should intervene and say, okay, you didn't mean to hurt his feelings, but he said this is how it makes him feel, or it makes him feel sad, then we shouldn't say that. You know what I mean? Right. It's about teaching our kids, because, we teach them to be honest. Yes, you should be honest, but you can't then negate how someone feels about what you say.
Exactly.
That's right?
That's true. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, well said. Okay, well said. Okay, Miss Edingon and Miss Pincham-Little, any other final words as far as how, as a nation and community, how we should deal with bullying and kind of make sure that it doesn't kind of snowball into bigger issues where it could be unfortunate, suicide or them turning into bullies, or of course the more heinous things of shooting up a school. And any words, Miss Edingon first. We'll go with that.
Yes. Well, I just want to say that us as grown-ups, and then even for kids, that we need to be more aware and paying attention to. I just wrote recently that one word, we can change this and stop this. One word, one look, one action, one person, one child at a time. So as a grown-up, if I'm paying attention to words that I hear, actions that I see, looks that I may experience, or interaction with a child or a grown-up. And the same thing from a child's perspective. When they see things and we pay attention to it, or we watch what we say or learn different words, that no thing should we take for granted, and begin to nip the smaller things, which will help change some of the bigger things. But we also, want to focus on those big things too. But a lot of these little things that we're letting being said and done and laughing at, or not paying close attention to, are leading to some of these silent situations where kids fall through the cracks and then feel like they have nobody else and take their own lives.
Okay. Ms. Pincham-Little?
Yes, I would say is be nosy. Be nosy. You have a lot of people like, that is my business, and their parent will handle this, or I'm not getting involved. It's too much work for me. I'm ready to go home. That kind of attitude needs to go away. And also the second thing would be follow up, because when things die down and you're thinking everything is okay, little Johnny over there, he's over there with some friends now. It doesn't look like he's getting picked on anymore. He got his new tennis shoes on, so he's okay. And we've moved on to the next crisis. We need to continue to follow up, to check in, make sure that Johnny is okay, because those moments when all the adults pull away is usually when something happens. So that's the thing.
Well, we do thank you both, Cynthia Pincham-Little and Miss Paulette Edingon, for coming on the show and sharing with us your ideas and methods and ways where we can try to understand bullying more and how to deal with it, and how we as adults should be a little bit more aware and speak to our kids and understand what their friends or peers are doing in school, and what may seem like nothing to us because we feel that we're past that. It could be something that's a lot bit more impactful for a 7-year-old, for a 10-year-old, for a 12-year-old. And bullying is important because we don't want our kids to die, and we don't want our kids to turn into, to seek retribution through guns, through violent ways, and all these other things that we hear on TV. So I personally feel there is a connection between bullying and violence with young adults and into adulthood, and we shouldn't take it so lightly. And it's something that, it has been broken down to a science, but it has to be incorporated into as programs, into where kids, where they learn, where they play, where they interact. And by doing this, we can minimize and eliminate bullying, and also for more, crazier things that may happen in our society. So we do appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, sorry for cutting this off, folks, but we just hit our mark to get into the next song for the show, the third and final song. But for this song, we have Deluxe, great artist. Again, we coming back with a lot of good artists on the second go round. They just have great music, and that you guys should listen to. And his song is called My Way. All right.
Straight to the four corners of the earth. What we have here are sonic bangers.
No doubt.
On the world stage.
Woo!
Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. Doing about 100 on the highway. About 100 on the highway. You send the pictures before I pull up in the driveway. Now I'm flowing deep up in your ocean. The way you want it got a brother losing focus. And I'm digging your motion. Cloud 9, how a nigga got you floating. Now we going off the ganja, you know that I got you. Doing you proper, you're calling me papa. You know I love it when you're calling me papa. Touchdown, I'm in your zone. Now just work your body, move your body. Whatever you do, just don't hurt nobody, body. Work your body, move your body. You got a nigga in the zone. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it. She got a little attitude, but fuck it, I like that. If I ever lose, I get up and fight back. You mind, don't fight that. If I text, type back. Shine and wine, pass me the weed and light that. Yeah, I shine like the middle of the city. Might go blind in a minute if you with me. If she in my line and say, Tony, come and get me. I'll be on a flight in a minute for the quickie. Don't you move me out the way, my darling. I pray that you don't move me out the way. You say I got better bitches in my face, my darling, but me and you know that is not the case. Fuck it anyway. We should take a trip and get away. You know I can make a flip and we can spend it in a day. You and them a major difference, so them bitches gonna hate. Don't you listen that, but you we bout the business, bout the cake, yeah. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it. You like got the sauce, baby, I got the juice. Spit true for my rhymes, baby, this is the bro. We can go anywhere, Hawaii or Cancun. Just say the word and shorty, it's on you. And we ain't tripping unless we talking traps. Topic of discussion, there's really no other option. 5-star place, told her butterfly, she loving. I'm ballin' with no budget, take trips, I got the luggage. Shooting my shot, spraying, I don't miss. Time of your life don't get better than this. IV in my veins, you know I need my fix. The lip, the sweetest taste of sin. You my medicine, why? Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it. Girl, you like it my way. My hands around your waist. Expressions all on your face. You like it, you like it.
Okay, we're going to get out of here, folks. Appreciate everyone that tuned in and listened to this particular episode, and just listen to GCOM in general. Shout out to all the guests that really came on, and especially those that contributed to the making of Zana the Brave. LK been talking about this for a long time, and grinding out and putting in that hard work. Now she is here with the book. available for you guys to pick up. And also check out Lyfeblood.com. Start your profile. Let people know what you're doing. As everybody already knows, Lyfeblood is about you finding your passion and getting yourself to that point where you can be self-sufficient. How you do that? You got to build your network. You got to let people know, whether you're people of like mind or those that are new to finding out who you are. This is where we do it. This is where we start that community and start becoming self-reliant amongst each other, as opposed to continuing to knock on other people's doors for money to help us get where we need to go. And if you already been there before and it was frustrating and you're growing tired of that whole thing, that's what we're here to do with Lyfeblood.com. Also, I will leave on Lyfeblood.com, when you do click on the media center section, a link where you can go to my profile and you could donate to me. And if you really like what the show is about, you like our conversation, the content, if you have anything that you also would like to hear on the show, feel free to comment on it, and then you can go to my profile and donate $1, because we're trying to get this also rolling as well. You know, we are a part of Lyfeblood not only as owners but also as active members as well. So thanks for listening to the show, and we're gonna get out of here. Until next week, peace.
It's WPRD 98.3 GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com for the global community. On the next go round, from right here to your time.
I already know.
We out.